They've nearly jumped an entire division. From the bottom 4 to the top 2, lost in the playoffs last season and have dropped off massively, fallen over an entire division. You may think your team is having a good or bad season, but how does that stack up against where they finished last season? I've taken a look at every team's finish last campaign and their current position right now in the English football pyramid. From 1 to 92, the top of the Premier League to the bottom of League 2. And we're going to figure out who are the biggest climbers and who are the biggest fallers. Take a guess down there in the comments who you think is going to come out looking best, who's going to come out looking worst. Let's start up in the Premier League then, where our 3 biggest climbers are in 3rd, Newcastle United with Eddie Howe and the Saudis quickly jumping into those Champions League places. In 2nd, Nottingham Forest. They were the lowest ranked team from last season as the Championship playoff winners and currently closer to halfway than the bottom. Ahead of them though, in 1st, our biggest Premier League climbers are Fulham, who, after winning the Championship last season, have kept it going and could possibly finish in Europe. In the Championship, well, 3rd biggest climber currently, Reading, maybe declining a little bit lately, but Paul Ince has moved them sort of out of the bottom 6 picture towards the middle. In 2nd, Rotherham. I know, but that good start under Paul Warne means that only one team has climbed more places from last season, and that is in 1st place, Sunderland. Playoff winners from down in 5th place in League One, all the way up to a top 10 spot. They've nearly jumped an entire division. In League One, and it is more promoted teams from last season dominating, yes, with the exception of Forest Green, who are bottom, but 2 of the other 3 are in the top half. The other one is not far behind. So, our biggest climbers in League One are 3rd, Joey Barton and his Bristol Rovers side. In 2nd is Port Vale, who are actually tied with 1st place Exeter, but we will give the Grecians the nod as they're currently higher in the table. In League 2 then, our top 3 biggest climbers. In 3rd, Grimsby. They won the National League playoffs from all the way down in 6th spot, so their jump was always going to be a guaranteed big one. In 2nd, Paul Simpson has taken Carlisle from a bottom 5 finish last season. They're currently in the top 4. Even better though, in 1st, Steve Evans has taken Stevenage from the bottom 4 to the top 2. Some people think they might end in the top 1. We'll look at those failing fallers in a minute. Let's do the top 10 climbers then first. For the whole 92, who's jumped the most places from last season's finish? Tied in 9th place, up 13 spots, are Stockport County and Barrow. Tied for 7th, up 14 places, Grimsby and Fulham. In 6th, up 15 places, are Bristol Rovers. Tied for 3rd, all 3 of these teams, up 16 places, Carlisle, Port Vale and Exeter. So we have joint winners, both up a massive 20 places from their finishes last season, Stevenage and Sunderland. Here come the fallers then, and in the Premier League, 3 teams have dropped 7 spots. I'm going to mention them because there's some big names here. Wolves, Chelsea and Liverpool, but it's West Ham who've plummeted the most. In the Championship, it's that awful but sadly familiar story of a team who had a brilliant season last time out, which results in the manager and the star players no longer being there. I'm talking about Huddersfield, who have experienced the biggest drop after finishing 3rd and reaching the playoff final last season. In League One, eerily similar to the Championship for Huddersfield, read MK Dons, who finished 3rd, lost in the playoffs last season and have dropped off massively this time. For Corberon, read Manning, and for Toffolo and O'Brien, read Darling and Twine all no longer around. In League Two, it's sadly, for Gills fans, all about Gillingham, relegated last season from League One. They are currently in the relegation zone in League Two, with a very big caveat though. They've just had new owners take over last month. They've spent a load of cash, so we would expect by the end of that season, it might still be a big number, but it probably won't be as big as it is right now. Here they come then, the top 10 biggest foolers over the whole 92, comparing last season's league finish and where every team is right now. We've got 4 teams tied on -9 places. All these teams have dropped by 9. West Ham, Peterborough, Accrington and Cambridge. In 6th, Wimbledon have dropped 11 places from last season. Tied 4th, and this is a big jump, -17 places, MK Dons and Doncaster. In 3rd, on the Walk of Shame, -18 places, Crewe. In 2nd, -19, we've mentioned them, Huddersfield. And in 1st, no one was going to top it. League Two's biggest fallers, probably January's biggest League Two spenders. Gillingham have fallen over an entire division, -26 places from 4th bottom in League One last season to 2nd bottom in League Two right now. Before I get to my biggest takeaways from doing this, you can support me over on Patreon, and what I will do today, I'll put my full list of the 92, the ups and downs, and my working out exclusively over on Patreon for subscribers only. If you enjoy my work, YouTube is completely free, but that little bit of financial support on Patreon goes a long way to me, hopefully, achieving my ambition of doing this for a living. So what did we learn? Well, 7 of the 10 highest climbers were promoted teams. Obviously, that kind of stands to reason. They're going to get a guaranteed plus number, whatever happens, but it does show that momentum from a winning season can move on into the next one. With that being said, let's just give a shout out to our 3 highest non-promoted climbers. That would be Barrow, Carlisle and Stevenage. Perhaps no coincidence, they are all 3 League Two sides. In terms of the fallers, not quite so pronounced, but again, half of those were sides that were relegated last season. With the others, the pattern does seem to be teams that maybe were punching above their weight and then either regressed to the mean, in the cases of like Cambridge and Accrington, or dropped below it after punching above it, in the case of maybe West Ham, Huddersfield and MK Dons. I wasn't surprised to find out that the biggest average movement in any division was in League Two. The average League Two movement is 8.8 places at the moment from the end of last season, where perhaps down there in the 4th tier, some sustained good work can give you quicker gains than in any of the other leagues. I was, however, particularly surprised to find out that the Premier League was not the most predictable, but it's actually the Championship that has the smallest average movement as of right now. Other than the huge swing upward for Sunderland and downward for Huddersfield, position-wise, everything else is fairly stable in comparison with the other 3 divisions. And look, stop, before you all start screaming at me, that is absolutely not me calling that a stable league. In fact, its instability is probably the reason, and that gross financial inequity probably causes it to be a little bit predictable. Relegated Premier League teams, on average, are dominant up in the top 6. And generally, okay, Sunderland example aside, at least one promoted League One team is normally going straight back down. Let me know your thoughts then in the comments on the current climbers and fallers. How did your team fare, and who or what surprised you the most? If you're wondering who may be able to emulate those current huge rises up in the Premier League from promoted sides Nottingham Forest and Fulham, the obvious candidates would be Burnley and Sheffield United. Click up here to see my take on the Championship's current runaway leaders.